Stephen? Mr. Stephen? Time's up. Thank you. Thank you. Move on. Just make a statement. All the motions or the recommendations that we've put up in the agenda, I will introduce the topic, and then if required, I will ask the CEO to give some explanation, and then I'll ask the mover and seconder. Please do so via show of hands. So if you want to move, please raise either hand. So moving on to confirmation minutes. You've all had a chance to read the minutes from before. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Move Murat, Councillor Murat, seconded Councillor Martin. Are there any changes required to those minutes? Nope. I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried. Moving on to item 7 point, where did I put that one? 7.1, and it's the notice of rescission motion from the meeting held on 25th of October. Could I have a mover? Councillor?
No, what I'd like to do is make a motion of urgency, if that's possible. And
no, we have to deal with this motion, thank you. So can I have a mover of this motion? Councillor Gray. We don't have the name tags in front, so I'm going to get confused here. Councillor Gray moved, seconded. Councillor Murat.
Thank you, Mayor Murray. In talking for the rescission motion, this motion was put forward because I believe there has been insufficient time to effectively understand the nature of the previous motion and potential impacts that this motion has on the Armidale region and its people. I understand the importance of the wood smoke issue in relation to creating clean air during the winter period, and it's for that reason that I believe we as councillors need to understand the nature of this problem, bearing in mind that this has been put forward as an extremely important issue by Councillors O'Connor and Robinson. Yet it perturbs me that we have spent quite considerable time this morning on the economic development plan, and I truly believe that this warrants the same attention, and respecting that this is an item that we need to learn about. There's also other considerations that the wider Armidale region has grown, and this is a newly amalgamated council, leaving many ratepayers unsure of the issues and associated problems with the wood smoke, and as well what the impact of such lobbying at the local government conference may have. Now, I strongly suggest that a report be prepared that outlines the background, decisions, any previous policies, etc. So from the Armidale Generic Council, and of course if the Guyra Shire had such as well, that would be good to bring to the table so that we have an opportunity to update councillors and potentially the ratepayers. Also, the wood smoke and the clean air fit into the larger environmental sustainability strategy over the long term. And bearing in mind that the EPA has produced a document that was dated in June 2017, which obviously was not that long ago, which includes I'll just very quickly read from it. Under the current regulatory regime in New South Wales, wood smoke is largely managed by local government. Local councils have regulatory powers to control installation of wood heaters, and it goes on. Yet it also includes a wood smoke management framework, which I think that would be very handy to understand how that fits in with the Armidale region, and bearing in mind that there's this information that we need to digest, that it might be premature to go to the public forum such as the conference, knowing that this debate that goes there is on behalf of us as councillors, and I, speaking for myself, am not completely sure what information is going to be shared at the conference on my behalf. I think it's time that we had something that allows us time to investigate funding opportunities and to determine the most practical, valuable options for our region, how that is going to affect ratepayers, and also what implications it might have in supporting the reduction of wood smoke. I think that overall, the whole of the community, the regional community, applauds the reduction of wood smoke, yet let's do it in a considered and professional way where it's not rushed, it's very open and it's transparent for the community, and they have the opportunity to talk to. When considering the term powers, it's covered by the EPA. If we feel after we've had further discussions that we need to go and address this with the EPA, we can do that directly. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to go to conference to do that. So it's for these reasons that I believe the wood heating issue should not be discussed or debated at the conference until we are more informed as to the content to be discussed and it's in tune with the overall environmental sustainability strategy of the region. And I'll just leave it at that for now and reserve my right to reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Councillor Morat.
I support what Councillor Gray said. She said pretty much what needed to be said, so I'll just leave it at that.
Is there someone else that wants to speak for the motion? Is there someone who wants to speak against the motion? Councillor Watson.
Well, this is a really important issue to raise with local government New South Wales because, as Councillor Gray said, the state government made local councils responsible for wood smoke pollution. But as we found out at the Clean Air Summit, that policy isn't working. Chemical fingerprinting research presented there showed that 60 to 80% of the most health hazardous pollutant in Sydney's air in winter is wood heating pollution, and it's causing an estimated 100 premature deaths a year, more than any other single source of pollution. And I asked local government New South Wales what they were doing about it, and what they were doing about the New South Wales government's 10-year clean air strategy, and it seems to have slipped under the radar. But with an obviously estimated health costs of $8 billion and local councils being responsible for wood smoke pollution, there's an obvious need for all councils in New South Wales to get together and discuss the best practice ways to solve this problem, including the recent chemical fingerprinting research and the recommendations of the New South Wales Chief Medical Officer. This motion was never intended to be about Armidale, because we all know that the new regional council has not updated or created any new policies on wood smoke pollution. And I'd certainly like Armidale Regional Council to inform the community that we have no new policies on air pollution or wood heating, and that any future policies will be subject to full community consultation. And I hope this dispels the fears created by the misleading claims from some vested interests. The council wants to leave householders out in the cold, that we want to take wood heaters out of the community. There is no such policy, and there almost certainly never will be. But that's no reason to gag a discussion with other councils about the best practice ways to resolve this problem that's causing over 25% of pollution-related deaths throughout New South Wales. We need this discussion now because the community consultation on the clean air strategy is ending. This might be the best and the only opportunity that councils will have in a long, long time to sort out this problem. If this had been a motion about renewables energy or upgrading house insulation, issues that also affect everyone in New South Wales, would council want to gag debate simply because Armidale hadn't developed its own policy? I'd certainly like, if I could, to offer an alternative as a motion of urgency, but I'll leave that in case it doesn't get up. But all I want to say is we need to draw attention to this issue, because we can't solve this difficult problem without funds or for education or demonstrating that non-polluting alternatives are more convenient and cheaper than buying firewood. Without funding, Launceston wouldn't have been able to reduce deaths from respiratory diseases in winter by 28% and from heart attacks and strokes by 20%. 1 in 6 Australians will suffer a stroke. It's the leading cause of disability in this country. We could avoid some of that hardship and misery and at the same time reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by encouraging people to switch to non-polluting heating, as happened in Launceston. We need to do everything we can now, including raising this issue with local government New South Wales, in the hope of drawing attention to this important issue and identifying possible solutions, such as the highly cost-effective measures recommended by the Chief Medical Officer of New South Wales. And we can't do that if we gag the debate before it starts and leave the field open for the well-funded industry lobby to dictate government policies as they have in the past. This motion is about putting the interests of our community first and to do everything we can to increase awareness of the important health issue and attract all-important funding to solve it. So please support it for the sake of everybody in New South Wales. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Is there someone to speak for the motion? Someone to speak further against the motion?
Yes, as the mover of the original motion, I'd like to, that's now under challenge for rescission, I'd just like to support what Councillor Robinson has just said. I also don't have issue with what Councillor Gray has said. In fact, back in 2015, I called on the community to have this debate, and I think that we should congratulate ourselves as a council, one way or the other, whatever happens with the outcome of this motion, that we have started a conversation, if somewhat uncomfortable. Because for the reasons that both Councillor Robinson and Councillor Gray indicated, this is an absolutely critical issue for Armidale City. And I think I just want to make it clear that the motion that is now being attempted to be rescinded did not relate to anything to do with Armidale per se. What it relates to is, as Councillor Robinson said, the ability for the upcoming local government conference to discuss the desperate need across the state, but in particular in regional areas, for more help from the state government. As you would probably know, the state government has really now, for the sort of first time probably, really taken air quality seriously. But I can assure you that their approach to air quality really focuses on their biggest problem, which is the Hunter Valley and Sydney. They are very aware of the fact that Armidale has a very bad exceedance problem. But it's my view, based on the many years, but also the last 5 years as a councillor, that unless we advocate vigorously, both in our professional organisations and directly to the state government, we won't get the attention and in particular the money that's needed. Now the time frame needs to be understood, and that is that the state government has concluded its statewide consultation process, and in fact during the phase 1 of the merger, the interim environmental committee part of the new council actually came back and met in early January in order to make sure that Armidale Regional Council was able to put forward a submission in response to the consultation paper put out by the state government. Now, as a result of the response to that consultation paper in early 2017, the New South Wales government called for a Clean Air Summit, and that was held on the 27th of June. Both Councillor Robinson and I attended that, and from that I learned an enormous amount about the severity of the problem that we have in Armidale. One is that we have there's three issues here. One is that we have major exceedance issues that are causing continuing health challenges to our community. The second one is that really we're not on the radar very much for the state government. They are much more concerned about different forms of air pollution in metropolitan areas and in the Hunter related to mining and power production, electricity production in the Hunter. The third one is that one good piece of good news is that at last the state government is actually putting Armidale on its air quality monitoring map, and I think we've had them installed as air quality monitors just at the top of Rugby Leg Park. So in the past, our air quality problems in winter were not a matter of sort of statewide or national record. It was a matter that we managed ourselves within council. Now, our air quality exceedances will be a matter of state and national record. And my sincere concern is that within 2 or 3 years, we will become notorious for something that we don't really want to be well known about, and that's our air quality. And I think it needs to be pointed out that even if we meet the current standards of air quality in relation, and our air quality is exclusively related to the wood smoke emissions, even meeting current standards, that's equivalent to asking every man, woman and child, whether they be an infant, a young child, or a frail-aged person, or anybody else in between those age ranges, it's asking them to smoke or taking the equivalent of 3 cigarettes worth of smoke per day. Now, we don't have to reinvent the wheel in relation to the carcinogenic and deleterious impacts on health of the carcinogens that are in cigarettes or that are in wood smoke. They are the same. So I'm really asking councillors to allow us to take this issue and to the local government conference in December, and it's been listed in its current form.
Councillor O'Connor, you've had your 5 minutes.
All right, I'll just finish. I'm asking that we be allowed to take action to advocate this at our organisation level, and then to move forward with the state government, because there is no more consultation from the state level. Yeah, I'll thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's it. Councillor Gray, you have a right to reply.
I'd like to thank Councillor Robinson and O'Connor for their words. They're very passionate about this issue, and I understand that. The first point that I'd like to make here is that there's absolutely no gagging of this topic. In fact, it's the opposite. Yet let's have the conversation locally rather than at a conference first. There's absolutely no gagging whatsoever. I think that even if it was looked at that even in 12 months' time, and we have our environmental sustainability strategy underway, we have had plenty of discussion, we have had opportunity to move forward on wood smoke reduction here, we would actually even have a better story to take to the conference. We would have a better argument. And I feel that that opportunity is not being given to us as councillors to fully understand this, to understand what's been done in the past, where we're at now and where we want to go in the future. And I'm speaking on behalf of the people of our region that don't understand this issue either. They need the opportunity to have consultation. They need to be engaged and be able to bring forth their views. I think that if we go to, for example, next year's conference with something and we're showing something that's far more proactive, we're more likely to get on the radar of state government. Ultimately, all I'm asking is for the support to have the opportunity to discuss and debate here first. And that's all that this is, so that we can have a communication and engagement, not just between ourselves, but with our community. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Now, before I put it to the vote, because this could be a potential close one, I'd ask you to hold your hand up for a while we do a count. So All those in favour of the rescind motion, please raise your hand. So 7. Those against? 4. Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 8.1. This is an item relating to heritage and signage and potential funding application. It's all in the papers and up on the screen. Could I have a move of that motion, please? Councillor Witters, Councillor O'Connor. So, Councillor Witters.
I'll reserve my right of reply. Thanks.
Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I thought this was my motion, but I'm quite happy to be seconding it. I just the words in the motion, the words in the council papers are self-explanatory, but for the benefit of those listening to the live streaming, this motion is about developing more heritage and tourism signage around Armidale, and in that I would include retail signage, so directional and wayfinding signage, so that everybody in our community has a little bit more help in both finding places but also in understanding the history, the heritage, and some of the a whole lot of items in our environment, either built or natural, that are particularly special to our area. It just seems at the moment that we've got an absolute wonderland of unique ecological and natural features, as well as heritage and built items around us, and we really haven't had an integrated policy developed for signage. I understand this is underway, and I'm really delighted to know that the council executive and staff are working hard on developing and building up our signage policy and strategies across a number of different departments. So there's really nothing to argue about other than to rejoice that we have really amazing heritage items to share with our visitors. And so the purpose of this is really to sort of fly a flag for Let's Moving and perhaps bringing forward the implementation of better signage around our area. An example of this would be, for example, upgrading the signage that's at, say, Thunderbolt's Cave, which sits between Guyra and Armidale communities on the New England Highway. That's a really exciting, interesting piece of our history, and I think people love to go there and visit, but really the signage there is pretty dated, faded, hard to read, and perhaps doesn't include updated information. So if we can get on track with a steady program of just making all the special features of our area able to be interpreted by visitors and ourselves as residents, it would just increase not only the quality of tourism that we offer to our visitors, but also enhance our own experience living in this area.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Councillor Tiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It might surprise you that I'm speaking against the motion, which is about improving interpretive signage for heritage and tourism. I would cite the officer's report on pages 7 and 8, and their response in particular, which indicates there's plenty of activity occurring in the branding space. A whole lot of activity's been occurring there for the last 12 months, and of course in heritage and tourism interpretive signage. And we're progressing well along the pathway of doing all that we can in that respect. It demonstrates, or the staff response demonstrates to me that council is recognising and is prioritising this issue. And for example, the inventory of all signage, you'd think that's a reasonable precursor to taking more action in this space. So I don't see how the motion adds to what's already happening. the motion talks about, where are we? Council recognises and prioritises. Well, we're clearly doing that. So therefore I think that a more suitable motion, and if this is defeated I would move it, is that the council support and endorse the staff activity in relation to interpretive signage as detailed in this report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there someone to speak for the motion? Then I'll put it to Councillor Withers, right reply.
Yeah, just quickly, with what both Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Toley have said, I'd really like to see some sort of signage in regards to heritage and all that sort of stuff, but whether as someone involved in the language program, whether that gets involved in with the signage so that there's dual signages in other areas would be good. But if it's already, all this sort of thing is already in the pipeline, I think that's a good point as well. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Withers. Now I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the...
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, as a seconder, can I accept an amendment as proposed by Councillor Tiley?
Did you, sorry, Councillor, was it an amendment or a foreshadow? So
well, I'm very happy.
Councillor O'Connor, this is a foreshadow motion. So those in favour of the motion? Those against 4? Those against? 6. Thank you.
So I'll now move, Mr. Mayor, with your permission, that council support and endorse the staff activity in relation to heritage and tourism interpretive signage as detailed in the report.
Is that all, Councillor Tiley, for the motion?
That's the motion.
So, Councillor Robinson, second. Councillor Tiley?
Very quickly, this motion is designed to give the imprimatur to our staff to do what Councillor O'Connor's talking about. Let's do as much as we possibly can in that space. It's a key economic driver to have this signage. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson? Someone wish to speak against the motion? Therefore, I will put the motion. Passed unanimously. Thank you. So we're moving on to item 9.1. And this is related to the delegation of the Chief Executive Officer, as detailed in the agenda and on the screen.
Move the recommendation.
Move that motion, please. That's Councillor Tiley, Councillor Murat. Councillor Tiley.
We'll reserve a right of reply if necessary.
Councillor Murat.
I've got no comment. It's just as recommended.
Anyone speak against the motion?
I don't want to speak against, but I'd quite like to have some elaboration of the circumstances under which the CEO can enter premises by force under section 19, whatever it was.
Bear with us.
Yeah. It was highlighted. Clause P.
Councillor Robin?
Clause P.
my understanding is the CEO has rights under if there's dangerous animals, issues of that nature, safety issues.
Thank you.
If there's no other, I'll put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. Now, 9.2 is the appointment of councillors to advisory and 355 committees. What I want to do is there's 4 parts to this. I'd like us to consider all 4 parts and move that. And after we've decided that, we're going to close suspend standing orders so we can discuss councillors to be on each individual committee. So if we can just have a mover and a second of 4.
Move the 4 parts.
Move, Councillor Tyler moved, Councillor O'Connor seconded. Councillor Tyler? Councillor O'Connor? No one speaking against? So put that to the motion. Those in favour? Those carried unanimously. Okay, I'd like to suspend standing orders so we to discuss Part A and Part B. So if I can get a mover, please. Councillor O'Connor.
I move that council moves into committee of whole.
Seconder. Councillor Gray. We have a number of committees we've got to get a chairs for. We do that in first. So which ones we've got? A list of them to just do. The arts and culture. Yep. So we'll do the first one I've got is Regional Growth Advisory Committee for a chair. Do we have someone that? Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. The Arts and Culture Advisory Committee, that role.
I'd like to nominate for that position.
Councillor O'Connor. Any others? Thank you. There's one person nominated, one person has the position. The Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee.
I'd like to nominate for that position.
Are there any other nominations? Thank you. The Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee.
I'd like to nominate for that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Any? Councillor Gray. Oh, Councillor Robertson, you turn your mic off, please.
Yes, I'd like to nominate as well.
Thank you. Since we have two people nominating for one position, we'll have a show of hands, please, for elections. So could I have a show of hands for those people electing Robinson onto the panel? Those voting Councillor Gray. 4. So Councillor Robertson. The Floodplain Management Advisory Committee, chair for that, please.
I'd like to have a crack at that, please.
Councillor Gillittley. Are there any others? Moving on. The Traffic Advisory Committee. Oh, sorry. We'll do the traffic. I'll come back to that.
I'd like to nominate that.
Any others? Yep. The Regional Growth Advisory Committee. That's a Councillor Bailey. Any others? The Business Advisory Committee.
I'd like to nominate for that.
Any others? Nope. The Armidale Regional Sports Council.
I'd like to throw in a nomination to be on that committee. Thank you.
So as it stands, we have those people up there on the screen. Now we move on to part B, because, well, what I want to do is just take them all as one when we come back into closed session. So, into the committees, we need one councillor on the Armidale Regional Youth Advisory Committee.
Was I put on that at the last meeting? Did we make a motion to? But if not, I'll put my hand up for that again.
I think you're right. You were appointed.
Was he? Oh. Well, your Councillor Withers, you're the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. One councillor, please.
Can we just clarify if that's as well as the chair or not?
That is correct.
I'll nominate to go on that.
Any others? Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. We need two councillors for that role.
I'd like to nominate.
Councillor Gray.
I'd like to nominate for that as well.
Councillor O'Connor. Any others? Yep, duly noted. Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee. Again, two councillors.
I'd like to nominate for that.
Councillor Robertson. One further councillor, please. Councillor O'Connor.
I'll nominate.
Councillor Tardy. The Environmental Sustainability. So, did you wish to go for it, Councillor O'Connor?
No, I'm happy to withdraw, but I did nominate for the Environmental Sustainability Committee.
Right, Councillor O'Connor for the Environmental Committee. Any others? Oh, Councillor O'Connor, can you turn your mic off, please? Councillor Gray.
I'd like to nominate as well, please.
We have one councillor required, so can we have a show of hands again? Those in favour of Councillor O'Connor on the Environmental Sustainability Committee? 5. Those in favour of Councillor Gray on the committee? 5. And I'll be voting with Councillor Gray. 60 was 5. The Floodplain Management Advisory Committee, one councillor. Councillor Tarley. Sorry, Councillor O'Connor.
I nominate as well.
Any further nominations?
Can I point out, Mr Chair, that I've been a member of the State Floodplain Management Authority for 5 years and involved with flooding on the Clarence for 20 years.
I'm very happy to defer to Dr. Tyler's experience and withdraw my nomination.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. The Regional Growth Advisory Committee, two councillors.
I'd like to put my name up for that one, thanks.
Councillor Murat. Councillor...
I'd like to nominate for that committee as well. Thank you.
And Councillor O'Connor, can you turn your mic off, please?
And I would also like to nominate.
Councillor Gray. So we've got 3 people on the put their hands up for 2 positions. So we'll have to do a show of hands again, please. Those in favour of Councillor Murat, show of hands. Just once, thanks. Oh, sorry, yes, Bill. So Councillor Murat, again, please. That's thank you. Councillor O'Connor. And Councillor Gray. 6. So is Councillor Murat and Councillor Gray. The Traffic Advisory Committee, one councillor as an alternate.
I'd like to nominate for that.
Councillor Robinson. Good. Business Advisory Committee, one councillor.
I'll nominate for that.
Councillor O'Connor. No further.
Vote as well, thank you.
Councillor Martin. We need one councillor, so no further nominations. Put that to the vote. Councillor O'Connor. Show of hands, please. 4. Councillor Martin. 6. Councillor Martin. The Gallinyama Aboriginal Advisory Committee, one councillor.
No. That you're a chair? You're not the chair?
May I before we do, it's
Yeah.
an independent at the moment. It's an independent chair,
Ah, okay.
and if you look at the what in the papers, there's an independent chair, but there's going to be discussion held on the future of that committee. So I'll just now ask people who would you like to nominate for that to be on the committee, not as
Can I just mention to on the minutes that I don't want to be the councillor on that due to conflicts of interest. So I'd like to see someone else on the council to run it, because I think it's someone else besides me should be on it. So that's why I haven't nominated.
Thank you, Councillor Willis.
Okay, I'll nominate for that position.
Good.
Thank you.
Councillor Wren. Armidale Regional Sports Council, one councillor, please.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate to be sitting on it, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gillespie. Any other nominations? Right. We've done. Now, can I ask for a move that we go back into closed section, please? Councillor Martin. Councillor Gray. So, now that we have all of those, can I steal your piece of paper, please? Just to clarify and to do all the right things. Part A, Arts and Culture Advisory Committee is Councillor O'Connor. The Community Wellbeing Advisory Committee is Councillor O'Brien. The Environmental Sustainability Advisory Committee is Councillor Robinson. The Floodplain Management Advisory Committee, Councillor Tiley. Oh, sorry, Gillespie. Sorry, reading. Regional Growth Advisory Committee is Councillor Bailey. Traffic Advisory Committee, Councillor Martin. Business Advisory Committee, Councillor Gray. And the Armidale Regional Sports Council, Councillor Witters. And then the councillors are actually on the appointed as up there. Councillor Witters, Gray, and O'Connor, Robinson and Councillor Tiley, Councillor O'Connor, Councillor Gray, and where are we up to? Councillor Tiley. Regional Growth is Councillor Murat and Councillor Gray. Traffic Advisory Committee is Councillor Robinson. Business Advisory Committee, Councillor Martin. The Aboriginal Committee is Councillor O'Brien, and Regional Sports is Councillor Gillespie. So thank you very much. So moving on to the item 9.3, which is the draft media policy.
Point of order, sorry, I think A, we need to go out of committee of whole, and B, we need to vote to either endorse or not endorse the decisions that were made during the committee of whole.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor.
Mayor,
Appreciate it.
we weren't in committee of the whole, just a gallery.
Resume standing orders, which we did. And can I have a move it that those positions be filled as described on the screen? Councillor Witters, Councillor Gray. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you. So moving on to 9.3, the draft media policy as described in the notes and on the screen. Could I have a mover of that, please? Councillor Tiley, Councillor Gray. Councillor Tiley, Councillor Gray. Anyone wish to speak for or against the motion? No. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
Excuse me, I voted against. Could I have that recorded?
Yes. Item 9.4, the draft council and staff interaction policy. And this is 5 points that the policy be endorsed, and it's got a number of points on there. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bailey, Councillor Gray. Councillor Bailey.
All I did have some apprehension about it, as my colleagues know, and I'm happy to move it. And I would just hope that there is some review in 6 or 12 months' time to see whether it is working and reviewed, and that we're not getting blockages associated with the fact that there's a blockage at the top because of their busyness and doing other tasks. So all I'd ask is a commitment from the CEO that there will be a review or report as to how it's been implemented over the 6 or 12 months, whatever period you decide to review it on.
Councillor Gray.
I reiterate what Councillor Bailey has said. I think it's a opportunity for us to see how this interaction policy works and just make sure that we're getting feedback either way. If it's working well, we also need to hear that. Thanks.
Anyone just to speak against the motion? Therefore, I put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous. Item 9.5, which is the quarterly budget review statement, the first quarter of 2017, and it's a note that the first quarter budget review statement is provided and adjusted. So could I have a mover, please? Councillor Morat, Councillor Gillespie.
Can I perhaps add to the motion with the approval of the mover? A third part, that staff be instructed to achieve a break-even budget result by 30th of June 2018. That means reining that deficit by the end of the financial year. You got that, Home? That staff be instructed to achieve a break-even budget result by 30th of June 2018. And I have a question, Mr Mayor, if I may, before we debate. Is that okay to ask a question?
Yes. Thank
you. The report details revenue offset of $170,000 from Section 94 contributions. That's on, I can't see the page here, but I'd like to know how that $170,000 relates to expense items. What's 23? Yeah. How does that $170,000 offset? What expenses does it offset, please?
Councillor Tiley, if your microphone.
Sorry.
I'll pass question the CEO, Peter Dennis.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll pass that on to the CFO to respond to that.
Can I ask, do you know what the balance of that road Section 94 contribution is after that reduction? Yeah, sure. Because it relates to another question about the need for Section 94 plans to obtain alternate revenue sources, but we'll talk about that later. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
So we have an amendment to that motion. Councillor Murat, you're happy with that amendment? Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I just have I'm wondering if it would be possible to have some response from the staff in relation to that additional paragraph. Because I would just like to have, before I vote, to know what the staff think of that.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. I'll question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr CFO.
Councillor Tiley.
I seek to speak in favour of the motion with the extra clause, if the mover doesn't want to speak first.
Go ahead, Councillor Tiley.
Last year, the staff was instructed to have a break-even budget and had to find in excess of 600,000, and they did it on the instruction of the council. The council can instruct the staff to do this. It happens everywhere all the time. It's prudent financial management, and I think as the next two quarterly budget reviews come to us, the staff, knowing this resolution is on the books, will adjust the budget accordingly. That's normal practice. Thank you.
Anyone wants to speak against the motion?
Yes.
Councillor O'Connor.
Yes, I'd just like to respect the staff point of view as it's just been expressed. I think you know, this is we've come through a very big change with the merger, and we've put together two councils, neither of which are in perfect financial shape, and so I think we ought to. I think the staff are doing everything they can, and that we should revert to. Well, I will support the original formation of this motion, not the one as changed with the additional paragraph, because I want to not put impossible or unrealistic pressure on them.
So, anyone else in favour of the motion? Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I agree with Councillor Tiley. We've got to show leadership to our community that we can run at least a break-even budget, because if we can't run a break-even budget when we've got a special rate variation in place, and we've got $15 million that was given to us effectively by the state government, when can we run a break-even budget? And I think we've got to act financially responsibly. We're aware the general fund is under pressure, but let's start making the hard decisions now if we have to.
Someone, any councillor wish to speak for the motion? No, sorry, against the motion?
Yeah.
Councillor
I'll take it as against the motion. When was after last night's workshop, and having a look at the financial things that were presented to us last night, whether the time frame of the 9 months to the 30th of June is reasonable. I agree that staff should be aiming for a break-even budget, but whether we have to wait for the next financial year of 2019 to give them time to adjust to the merger and everything else would be my only concern. But so I would say, as that addition stands, I would be against it.
So, any councillor speaking for the motion? Councillor Gray.
I would like to point out that we are in a position where we need to be fiscally responsible for the ratepayers' money and how we spend that, and we have to at least aim to be break even. And so the third paragraph there states it clearly that that is the goal that we need to achieve.
Speaker against the motion? Councillor O'Brien.
Again, I'd like to give respect to the staff and the situation they're in, but also to point out that while it's important to be fiscally responsible, we also are not strictly a business. We are actually a service, and we have to bear in mind that services could be restricted or cut, or we don't know the impact we have by putting unrealistic break-even budget results by that time. So I don't think we can strictly talk about council just being a business, bearing in mind that we do have to be fiscally responsible, but it is a service and it may have an impact on services.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Gillespie, speaking for the motion.
I'm new to this, as we know, but I think we've got to look for, first and foremost, that we are actually a business. I've been told that we're the biggest business in this area, which you'd hope to think we were, and as long as it isn't too unacceptable with the staff to work along those lines, but I don't have a problem with seeing how they have a crack, because we'll see how they go. Thank you.
Right, any Councillor, you're speaking for
No,
the motion?
I'm speaking against the motion.
Thank you.
I'm just concerned that we had a workshop yesterday and this wasn't raised yesterday, and it does seem to be that the staff are saying this is unrealistic. And although I believe that we should do everything we can to try and break even, I think just instructing the staff in this way and maybe could result in other things happening, that they make sweeping cuts that actually lose value for money as far as service is concerned. So I'd be wanting to ensure that we get value for ratepayers' money as well as breaking even. And I think we need more time to consider and discuss this before we actually instruct the staff in this way.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Any others for? Okay, I'll give it back the right to reply to Councillor Tiley. Oh, Councillor Morat, sorry.
No, I just think I support the motion as it stands. As Councillor Gately said, and I said during the election, council is a business, and while we may not be able to achieve a break-even budget, we've certainly got to try. So if we don't start trying now, we're never going to get there.
Thank you, councillors. I'll put it to the vote, but before I do, can you just hold your hands up slowly, for a while, just so we make sure we're getting the. Those in favour of the motion as it stands, as it's read, 6. Those at 6 for, those against. Motion's carried. This item 10.1. Now that's an information. For information, I'm just wondering whether the CEO could provide just a quick background, if there's any information in addition to the notes that's required.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Group Leader, Organisational Services, Lindsay Woodland, has been leading this work on the Armidale CBD revitalisation of the Central Mall, so I'll hand over to Mr. Woodland to just provide a brief overview.
Through the CEO, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to speak to this paper. This paper is an extension of what was the previously adopted mall vibrancy plan. As part of that plan, we went out to market, engaged a consultant through a tender process, and that process involved a parking study as part of it, but also we asked the consultant to look at how we implement the mall vibrancy plan, particularly the asset infrastructure changes that we adopted in that plan. And as part of that, they looked at the vision for the mall, or the CBD precinct, and developed a concept for that mall as briefed by council officers. So that concept has been completed, and what we're proposing as part of this development is basically to look at a bigger picture, and that also aligns, this concept also aligns with the application for a grant, the Country Communities Grant, which I think closed a couple of months ago. And as part of that grant process, the application process, we actually did require this concept for the mall development, CBD precinct development. That has been done. The application has been completed. This paper points to that application and the funding around it. And in fact, the attachment is the expression of interest, part of that application. We're very confident that this application, and what we're hearing is the application is progressing quite well. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed that we will get the funding, but we're fairly confident that it's moving in the right direction, and so we believe that it's time to start in earnest the community engagement around that concept. The starting point is a concept. We've actually done a lot of community engagement already, particularly in part of the Mall Vibrancy Plan, but more recently we put up a number of projects to the community to vote on, to support in terms of what we're going to apply for these grants as they come up. And the mall CBD development came up very close to top of the list in terms of the community's priorities. So we believe that we've got community support, broad community support to progress the development. We've got a concept in place. It is just a concept at this stage. It's not the final design. There's a lot of engagement to go before we get to the final design. But at the end of November, we're planning to meet with the mall traders and owners, the CBD traders and owners, and to consult with them and to get them across the plans that we have and the original initial concept for the mall. And then early in December, we're planning to open an engagement centre. We're calling it the Community Connect Engagement Centre. That will be, we're leasing a shop in the mall, a retail premise in the mall, to set up that engagement centre. More for this particular project, but also for other projects that we have, and things like the airport development, for example, where we can engage the community directly, get their feedback on this mall development, and to look at you know, what we need to do in terms of changes to that design, if any. So that's the process. There'll also be online engagement, but I think this is still early days. It's a concept. The concept was put together specifically for that application process and as the extension to the Mall Vibrancy Plan. We're progressing. Now we need to engage the community in the next stage, which is what is the final design, particularly for the mall owners and the traders. What do they want in this design? It's a concept, and we believe that you know, it's a step in the right direction, but we need the community to get back to us on that. So that's really the context for that paper. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Right, it's a note job, so could I have a mover, please? Councillor Murat, Councillor Gray. Councillor Murat, Councillor Gray? No? Anyone want to speak against the motion or the note? Those in favour, put the vote. Unanimous, carried. Item 11.1, this is the adoption of the Road Management Strategic Plan. Councillor O'Connor and Councillor Bailey.
No.
Sorry.
Oh,
sorry. My sincere apologies. So, Councillor,
move the recommendation.
Councillor Tarley moves. Councillor O'Connor, second. So, Councillor Tarley.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important to say a little in relation to this matter. Firstly, I'd congratulate the officer who wrote the report, Mr. Shaw, for the quality of the report and its information, and also for the extensive community engagement that he undertook across the regional council area. Early in the administration period, it became very clear to me that there was insufficient money going into council roads maintenance. And early on, Mr. Shaw embarked on a secondary roads unsealed maintenance consultation in a situation where one's the highest level of maintenance and five the lowest. We were in the low fours, early fives. The people wanted it increased to level 3, and the council adopted that plan and put an extra $306,000 or $7,000 in this current budget to effect better maintenance of our unsealed roads. This particular report follows on from that first endeavour, and it means an extra in total with the categories as you see in the report, it means an extra 414,000 going to the roads maintenance vote. And my understanding from the council resolution on the 28th of June, I quote, "Council note the increased road maintenance allocations as detailed in the report," end of quote, that therefore it's in the budget. So I think it's a great initiative. I think it's a good story that our rural ratepayers in particular will be appreciative of. The effect of that extra money in roads, I think, is really important for this council going forward. So I strongly support the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Tiley. Councillor O'Connor?
Oh yes, I just would endorse what Councillor Tiley has said, although I don't have that knowledge that he has. But what I do have is the benefit of the excellent bus tour which some of us attended, led by the roads officers, including Mr. Shaw, and I just would really endorse this motion because I am mindful of the difficulties we had in previous times, and I think the policy that's now being promoted, and this, as is explained in this motion, is something that's really going to be appreciated by all our residents, especially the introduction of sort of reasonable expectation and predictability of roadworks. I know that's something that's always been important to Armidale Dumaric residents in the past, particularly country residents, that they get some firm idea of when their road will be graded and about what time that might happen. And so I'd really like, similar to Councillor Tiley, to congratulate Mr. Shaw and his staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? So I'll put that motion. So unless Councillor Tiley wishes a right of reply. He's not speaking, he's speaking for the motion though, Councillor Tiley, so we don't need to. Okay, Councillor Bailey.
I'll be very quick. I'd like to pronounce Councillor Shaw, Mr. Shaw. I thought he did an outstanding job. I think us publishing a road list is really professional, and the way he explained the roads to me and to all of us gave me a lot of bit of understanding, and I think it's a great report, and I'll look forward to future ones too. And as part of Mark's team, well done.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. So, yeah, my support for Mr. Shaw. That was a good report, and I think it's a good outcome for the region. So, may I put that motion? Those in favour? Unanimous. Carried. So, moving on to item 11.2. This is the planning proposal for draft amendment number 9 to the Armidale Dumaric LEP 2012. Thank you. So it's in two parts, as on the screen. Do we have a mover for that?
Move the recommendation, Chair.
Councillor Tiley, Councillor Martin. Councillor Tiley.
Very briefly, this is the. I also commend the report writer here, Kathy Martin. It's a very comprehensive report, and it's about taking the next step to develop our airport industrial subdivision by provision of the appropriate zonings after the Joint Regional Planning Panel approved the 72-lot subdivision a short while ago. So it's a procedural matter. It's getting on with the job of being able to develop the airport industrial subdivision. Strongly support it.
Councillor Martin? Sorry, Councillor O'Connor, can you turn?
Oh.
Councillor Martin.
I'd just like to support what Councillor Tiley said and say that I agree wholeheartedly.
Councillor Connor, I presume you want to speak against the motion?
No, not at all. I just wanted to ask a question about Section A, delineated in the map, which has disappeared off my iPad. But the map in the report appears to have the museum and the kiosk absolutely contiguous with the road frontage. So, thank you. So my question is, are we planning to have a tree buffer zone there or not?
Thank you, Councillor O'Connor. Mr. CEO? Councillor O'Connor.
Group Leader, Mr. Barowski. Thank you, Mr. CEO. That is the truck stop, the area that's designated for the rest and truck stop. There will be access to and from the highway from that area. That is a part of I guess a more detailed design that's underway currently to understand movements of both B-doubles and cars within that space to minimize conflict. But to answer your question, no, there'll be no tree line in that particular section because there'll have to be access to the highway.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak against the motion? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimously carried. Thank you. (11.3) It's a request to waive fees associated with the development of land for purpose of a restaurant at work. Oh, sorry, Andrew. Councillor Murat can come back. This one. Which one? This one. Yes. So. Sorry, councillors. Motion, because it was a planning matter, we will need a division. So, if you can just hold. Sorry, Councillor Murat. It was unanimous, but yes. Thank you, councillors. So, if Councillor Murat can come back in, please. And item 11.3. Request to waive fees for associated development of land for purpose of a restaurant, 110 Beatty Street. And now, could I ask for a mover of that motion, please? Councillor Widders. Councillor Murat. Councillor Widders.
Sorry, for those in attendance, I didn't put my microphone on. This is in regards to the gentleman that spoke earlier. I'm just trying to find it on my iPad, but maybe the CEO can give us some clarification on where council stands on this.
Mr. CEO.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Widders. Yeah, our recommendation is that the request be refused on the basis of that setting precedent for many. We approve these fee waivers, then we'll get lots of others coming through. So it's about being consistent.
I don't know whether this was just a follow-up question for the through the CEO, how the previous report from Mr. Woodland relates to, am I able to ask this, how that will affect any, how do I put it, whether, never mind, I'll ask it another time, don't worry about it. Don't worry.
Councillor Murat.
I'm quite happy to support the motion as it stands. I agree with the CEO, we can't set precedences with waiving fees. A lot of these fees are statutory fees that council have no control over in the first instance, and the other fees we take to basically to pay for council's time and staff to implement some of the things that are required, inspections and such. The particular business actually fronts onto the mall, but it also has frontage on the Marsh Street, which is a high traffic flow area. There are other takeaway food places along there, or other restaurants along that area. So this business is in no worse situation than those businesses, and they seem to be thriving. It's only a small amount of money, and if the business can't afford that, then I question the viability of the business.
Thank you, Councillor Morat. Anyone else to speak for the motion?
No.
Against the motion? Councillor Bailey.
We've just passed a resolution to force the staff to balance the budget, and now we're proposing to waive fees. I think we would be absolutely hypocritical if we allow the fee to be waived. And I think we've got to stick by what we originally proposed, which is to try and get the council to balance the budget. And so I would not be supporting it.
Point of order. I think Councillor Bailey might have misread it. The motion is framed in the negative.
Thank you, Councillor Connor. So just to clarify, the request be refused. So is there anyone else to speak? So I'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? 2. Thank you. $11.4. Now let's clarify this one. This is a similar request that to refund fees associated with the development be refused, and that the applicant be notified in writing. So can I have a mover, please? Councillor Bailey, Councillor Gray. Councillor Bailey.
Hopefully I'll get this one right. I think we've got to, as I've already said, we've asked them to balance the budget. I don't think we should be avoiding and waiving fees unless there's extraordinary circumstances, and I don't think that classifies as extraordinary.
Councillor Gray.
I'd just like to reiterate what was said in the previous motion. I think we have to remain consistent.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Anyone wish to speak for the motion? Against the motion? So I'll put the motion that the request for refund of fees be refused. In favour? Those against? 1. Thank you. Motion's carried. Now we've got a number of noting for information type reports. I'd like to take them as a group, but before I do so, I would like to thank Heather Sills for a lot of her work that's in preparation of the annual report that you've got in front of you. And I'd also like someone to move that we suspend standing orders, Councillor Gray, and a seconder, Councillor Martin, so that we can get someone to give us a talk about the refugees that's coming to Armidale. So put that motion that we suspend standing orders. Those in favour? Oh, sorry. Sorry, who was it? Councillor Martin was the seconder. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. Thank you. So, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, happy to introduce our service leader, customers and community services, Krista Smith. One of the really exciting developments for our region is the advice from the federal government that we're getting a significant intake of refugees from Syria in 2018. And I'll ask, it's a really important milestone in creating a multicultural region. So I'll ask Krista to provide an overview of that important development. Thanks, Krista.
On the 11th of August 2017, Armidale was announced as a regional refugee resettlement zone, as Peter said. It's projected that there will be approximately 200 Syrian and Iraqi people settled in Armidale. Settlement Services International are contracted by the federal government to provide support for the humanitarian settlement program in October of this year. What we know about the refugees coming to Armidale is not a lot, but what we do know is that settlement of refugees in Armidale will happen progressively. The first group of refugees will consist of approximately 8 families with around 30 children. Final details are not yet known, as every individual must go through rigorous health, character and security checks before being granted their visas. These people are all refugees. What is the difference between a migrant and a refugee? A migrant is a person that makes a decision to leave their country. They're able to plan, take their belongings and are free to return to their home country. Refugees, on the other hand, are forced to leave their homes, their country, their family and friends due to war or persecution. They cannot return unless the situation that they're fleeing from improves. Refugees can spend years in camps awaiting visa processing. The refugees coming to Australia are granted different kinds of visas. Armidale currently has 2 distinct groups looking for settlement in Australia. Primary settlers, which have humanitarian visas. These are the refugees currently living offshore who are looking to settle in Armidale in the new year. And this group will be supported by SSI. And the presentation today mainly relates to the primary settlers. Just for our information, the secondary settlers have safe haven enterprise visas, and these refugees have been processed and have been living in Australia for some time. So they have more developed English skills and they're looking towards education and employment. These settlers will not have the access to SSI that the humanitarian visa settlers will have, and they are supported by Sanctuary Australia, and that they'll be the primary group providing support to the sheds, as they're known. Under the Humanitarian Settlement Program, administered by Settlement Services International, every individual will have a case plan and an associated support worker or workers. SSI, under the HSP, will secure housing, provide furniture packages, provide food care packages on arrival, engage the refugees with Centrelink, engage the refugees with adult migrant education program, and engage families with schools and services. The HSP will provide support in the following key areas: housing, education and training, language services, employment, physical and mental health and well-being, managing money and transport, community participation and networking, family functioning and social support, laws and justice. SSI has engaged with local service providers to discuss and negotiate service delivery in all of the above areas. What's Council's role in all this? Armidale Regional Council staff are currently in the process of investigating how best to provide modern, inclusive, caring and holistic support to the refugees in collaboration with SSI and local service providers. Armidale Regional Council will provide civic leadership, guidance and oversight, and as per our community strategic plan, Council has a responsibility to develop strategies which promote inclusiveness of people from cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Thank you.
I'll put it to the councillors. Are there any questions? Councillor O'Connor?
Yeah, I was just wondering, I understand one of the groups is the Yazidi people who've been subject to Yeah, my questions relate to employment and also cost to council. There's nothing in the report so far that tells us what these people are going to do every day, and also what services are council supplying, and is that what is the costing on that?
Councillor O'Connor.
Sorry. At this stage, we're unsure of cost to council, if there is a cost to council. The service that we need to provide is in a support role, so it'll be resources. It will be our cost to will be the cost to council. The primary body is SSI. That's where the main support comes from, and they are supported by a number of other groups. We're just one of those, but our role is leadership. And as I said, in our community strategic plan, it's part of our community strategic plan to develop strategies which promote inclusiveness of people from cultural and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And this is exactly what the refugees will need when they come here.
Can I say something? Yeah. I think actually it's appropriate and actually a great honour for council to be part of welcoming these new residents. As refugees, they would have gone through significant trauma and dislocation. I know one of those groups have been consistently victims to attacks by ISIS over long periods of times and massacres. So there'll be, I think it's wonderful that we're able to be part of abilities to welcome these people into our community. I think it's a great reflection on our region that we put up our hands for this, and that we are doing something significant as welcoming people who have not felt safe anywhere else here. And it really is a reflection of the whole history of Australia, really, that for the waves of immigration there's often been refugees. I mean, myself as a Irish potato famine refugee, and many of us will look back into our history and say we were running from war, from hunger, and it's the story of Australia really, and for us to be part of this historic move. And it also fits in with so many other elements of what we need in terms of multicultural, vibrant communities and population growth, but most of all that we're able to give a hand to people in great need, and I feel honoured that council would be part of that.
Thank you, and that's very true.
Just a quick question: is this purely an Armidale thing, or we is Gyra and Tinga willing to accept some of these people? Just because I don't know, in a smaller country town they might be better accepted and looked after than in the bigger environment. But I'm not sure whether that comes into it or not. But I'd be interested to know what that is too.
I think initially we have to take our lead from SSI, who are the experts in this field, and we also need to make sure that the refugees are close to the services that they're going to need. In the initial stages, we don't know how much support they will need. Everyone will be individual, and they will have different needs. So we need to make sure that they're in the place where we can provide those services. SSI will be monitoring that, and in the first 18 months, I think Armidale is probably where SSI will be looking at locating them. After that, once they've completed the first 18 months with SSI, then they might be looking to see whether they branch out. So, yeah.
So, to ask the CEO, any comments from staff?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So, just to wrap up, I think on that, all right. Over to the group leader.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I'd just like to, picking up on commentary from Councillor O'Connor, it's probably not remiss to mention that the team, Krista and Sally, are working very closely with the state and the federal agencies around this. We're leveraging off experience and learnings from different communities that have already received similar refugees intakes. So we're getting support in that respect from a number of agencies who have actually already met here, I think at least twice. So we've shifted them from Sydney to Armidale to have those meetings so they understand the lay of the land and the needs, particular needs and resources that would be required in this region.
We've also had, we know that we've got refugees in other places like Coffs and Wagga, and our program leader will be going to Wagga to see how they've accommodated refugees. We're thinking Wagga's probably a bit closer in likeness to Armidale than Coffs Harbour is, so she'll be going there before the end of the year to see what we can do better if there is something that Wagga are doing that has worked for Wagga.
Councillor Bailey.
We had a presentation from Lucinda Wright, who's involved in the refugee group. And as a result of that, I've had a discussion with a number of businesses who would be interested in talking to some of them if they have some trade skills, not necessarily tradespeople, but trade skills in terms of employment. So, you know, I think it becomes, if we can quickly identify their skill sets, I think we can then begin to, the best way to integrate is to work. So if we can identify their skill sets, we can probably help find them some opportunities.
So the first thing to note is Lucinda is involved with Sanctuary Armidale, and they've had an awful lot to do with the secondary settlers that I talked about there, the sheds. The guys that are coming next year, they're a completely different set of refugees, and the expertise from SSI is where we have to go. The Sanctuary Armidale group are a peripheral, like us, a peripheral support to SSI. So we'll follow their lead, and they will let us know at what stage. When these refugees come, as I said before, we're not sure what condition they'll be in health-wise, emotionally, where they'll be, and the first thing that they will be looking for won't be employment, but when they are, we'll be there to support them with, you know, as much as we possibly can.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor Murray. Chris, I'd just like to say thank you very much. It was an informative presentation, and I look forward to the next update. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Gray. And just to wrap up, I endorse that. Thank you to Krista and Sally. It was something that did come out of the blue for Armidale Regional Council, and there's a huge amount of discretionary effort by staff going in at the moment. Really exciting, and our role is very much civic leadership, and it is very much supported by a community strategic plan, and it's all about creating that multicultural and caring Armidale region.
Councillor O'Connor.
Oh, I just wanted to add that the history of this is that the last Armidale Demerit Council, the mayor jumped on the opportunity, I think, when the then Prime Minister Tony Abbott announced that there'd be 12,000 special humanitarian refugee visas made for the peoples of Syria and Iraq, and so it was actually a very deliberate and rapid approach to the federal government by the former Armidale Demerit Council, which some people thought was never going to materialise in any people, and now it has, so it is very exciting. And yeah, we look forward, as Councillor Gray said, to the next instalment. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like that's been clarified. Are there any, while we're in suspended standing orders, are there any of those 13.1 to 13.4 that people need clarification on? If not, could someone move that we resume standing orders, please? Councillor Martin, Councillor Murat. Those in favour? Those against? None. So, could items 13.1 to 13.5, can we treat them as in globo, new word I've learnt, which means we treat them as one. So can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gilletley. They're all noting for information, Councillor Willis. So, Councillor Martin, sorry. John, sorry. Councillor Gilletley, Councillor Martin. Anyone who wishes to speak? Gilletley, Councillor Gilletley, you want to speak for the motion? Or
No, I'm happy with the way it stands.
Councillor Martin? Anyone wants to speak against? If not, I'll put them to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. So moving on, we're going to item 14.1, which is on page 53, absence of leave for Councillor Bailey. That Councillor Bailey be granted leave of absence for the period 16th of November to the 26th of November, excluding the current meeting. So can I have a mover? Councillor Robinson, Councillor Murat. Anyone, either Councillor Robinson or Murat want to speak for? Anyone want to speak against? Therefore, those in favour? Those against? Passed. Again, items 16.1 and 16.2 are information. I'd like to again treat them. Sorry? Oh, sorry, did I miss one? $16.1, 16.2? Oh, I've got, sorry, yes, so do I. So, Councillor Tarley moves, Councillor Robertson seconds. Councillor Tarley? Councillor Robertson? No one speaks against, so I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. So 16.1, 16.2 are information. Again, treat them in globo, my apologies. So can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gray, Councillor Murat. Anyone wish to speak for or against? Give. Okay, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. So we're moving on. Any matters of urgency? Councillor Bailey.
I'd like to suggest that we probably need a council meeting in January. At the moment, we won't have a council meeting for nearly 8 weeks, from middle of December through to the end of February, and I think for a new council that's too long. And I'd like to suggest that the fourth Wednesday, or somewhere around that date, be looked at for a January council meeting. And I'll move that way.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Bailey, this could be put up to the December meeting, so it's not a matter of urgency. So if I can suggest you discuss that with staff, and if you want to put it up to the December meeting. Any other matters of urgency? And an urgency, please. Yes, Councillor Robinson.
Yeah. No, I wanted to move a motion that I tried to move earlier on, that the Armidale Regional Council informs the community that it is no new policy on air pollution or wood heating, and that any future policy will be subject to full community consultation. And I believe it is urgent.
Harley, did you get that? So can you...
Yeah. Yeah, we've done it now.
While we wait for that to be displayed,
Yeah, it was actually no new policies on air pollution rather than current. Policies, plural. And that any future, any future policy.
Councillor Robinson, that is the motion.
Yes, that is.
Right. So to be considered an urgent motion, I will need a procedural motion that we consider it as a council to be of urgent nature. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Robinson, Councillor O'Connor. There is no debate. We, as a council, we vote on it being an urgent motion. So can I have a show of hands for who?
Point of order, I think the mover is allowed to address the matter, address urgency.
Sorry, it's not. So I put it to the vote. Those people who believe that motion as on the screen is of an urgent nature. Those against? 5. Councillor Bale. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't catch that. 6 to 5. So the motion has been carried. So now we move to Councillor Robinson. Would you like to speak for the motion?
Thank you. Since the motion put last month to discuss the issue of wood smoke, while the state government was formulating its 10-year air quality plan, and allowing all councils to get together and allow to discuss the $8 billion health problem in New South Wales that causes over 25% of pollution-related deaths, rumours have abounded that council wants to leave people out in the cold by forcing them to pull out their heating systems. And there is absolutely no such policy, and almost certainly never will be. And we really, really need to put people's minds at rest and dispel those ungrounded fears as soon as possible. So that's the aim of this motion, is to dispel those ungrounded fears and put people's minds at rest. That was never the intention and never will be the intention. Thank you.
May I just ask for guidance on this through Mr. Wilson? As far as I understand, we do not have any debate on this matter at this stage. It's purely up to the... Yes, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. So, Councillor O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, I support this on the basis that there has been an awful lot of traffic on social media in particular, and one Facebook page in particular, which has really got completely out of hand in terms of alarming the community. It was not, as Councillor Robinson said, the suggestion that Armidale Council had a policy of wanting to, freeze old ladies next winter so that they die was just utterly ridiculous. However, it's out there now, and You know, I've always taken the high ground and the positive view that at least we're now having a conversation we need to have, but really it's got very extreme. And as Councillor Robinson said, I think it is going to disturb and upset some people who don't have the resources that we do to sort of hunt down the truth or whatever, and are just going to be alarmed. So I really think that it would be helpful and of no cost whatsoever to this august body to support this motion and just make a very clear statement that we don't have a policy of trying to remove wood heaters without consultation, and that's the effect of Councillor Robinson's motion. So I'm really asking for a sensible approach here so that we can make it very clear that that's not what the original motion was ever about, and people don't need to be concerned.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Another speaker for?
For?
Yes.
Yep,
for.
yep. I just wanted to also reiterate what Councillor Robinson said and Councillor O'Connor, but also to say as a bleeding heart lefty, there's no way I would be supporting anything that where people were freezing to death in their homes or would pay extra power or would force people in a situation where they'd have to pay extra power. With the electricity prices the way they are, it's unconscionable to imagine that, first of all, that I would support anything like that. And this is the only reason I am supporting this, is that I know that there's no mandatory or compulsory element to this at all, and that the community fears, and I understand people's fears, that they should be addressed, that would never be happening, and I would never support anything of that nature.
Speaker against, Councillor Gillespie.
I'd like to get something clear in my head for a start. Dorothy spoke about a new testing device that was put up at Rugby League Park. How long has that been up for? And what is it an up-to-date, accurate sort of a device? But as far as it goes, we do want the truth, and the truth is as we found out, it's in one person's mind. It might be one thing from another, but there was, on the other side, there was a bit of scaremongering going on with it. If you move to Armidale, you will die young. So we've got to remember where that started from. Thank you.
Speaker for the motion. Councillor Bailey.
As a hard-headed righty, I would endorse that we've got to do something to dispel the rumour that we're going to walk around, each council is going to walk around and pull a wood heater out and leave everybody to freeze in their homes. And I think we've got to dispel the rumour and show that we don't have these sort of, that's why I would support this motion. We've got to show clarity of leadership, and the rumours are out there. I mean, I go to a number of places where people have said to me, "Are you going to pull the wood heaters out?" And I've said I've had to explain the whole circumstance to them. So I think it's important that we come out and say we're not.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Can anyone speak against the motion? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. That the motion as displayed. Those in favour? Unanimously. Thank you. Motion carried. Now, may I, before we moved into closed session, may I take a leave of break for 10 minutes, so we return back here at 3:05. We need a